Good evening, all. Happy New Year. This is the first video in my series on faith, food, family, and friends for 2022. Go forward. This is the summary of the statement for the year for our church. Go forward. As soon as this was spoken, many of us confirmed that it was a word for each of us as individuals and families. In Exodus chapter 14, verse 15, the verse says, Then the Lord said to Moses, Why are you crying out to me? Tell the sons of Israel to go forward. We see the Israelites come to the Red Sea. They had just been freed from slavery at Egypt. There was no turning back to that old life. There was a purpose for them, a promised land to conquer. They had, however, come to what seemed like a dead end. However, they got instructions from the one who mattered that they were to what? Go forward. And so a way appeared that was beyond what they would have imagined for themselves. But this does not mean positive thinking or you go ahead as your heart desires. As long as that desire is aligned to what you are meant to step into and build you where you need to be, it makes sense to move forward. In the story of the Israelites crossing the Red Sea, the waters parted and they walked across. You know what? The Egyptian army came following them. Now listen carefully. The army was not told to go forward, but they saw the way that was cleared and available in front of them and assuming that they could go ahead. What happened? Before they could reach the other side, the waters descended on them and they all, the Egyptian army, drowned. Almost 40 years later, a similar promise was made to Joshua as he took over the leadership of this huge group of people after Moses died. Read Joshua chapters 1 through 3. In chapter 1, we see that the Lord directly tells Joshua, when God tells you something, then even though you might not be able to see the way, you will be at peace. I'm speaking from experience. I'll share the story in brief of how I stepped into my current role at work. For now, I will just tell you this. It was a morning in October 2019 while I was ironing my children's school uniform that I had this specific conversation, two-way conversation with God about my leaving my job or moving forward from where I currently was. Let me tell you this. The way forward was not clear. The light was not seen. But I knew that it was not my voice that I was heeding to. In fact, the instruction that I got was very different than one that I would have given myself in my intellectual understanding. However, the peace was so great. I moved forward without quitting from my job, and more than a year later, I stepped into exactly what he desired, but it happens only because I heard his word. How many times have you had to give or receive an approval to do something, and the statement has been, go forth? Go forth, meaning go ahead and do this. You might have heard this from your bosses, perhaps. You have my approval. I am behind you as you step into this. As we look at this year and the phrase, go forward, introspect and see who has told this to you. Is this just an encouraging message from your pastor, or was he perhaps a mouthpiece that when these words were spoken, you knew that this is for you? If the latter, your spirit burns within you. You know that the motivation you feel is not something to make you feel good only, but has His backing. The path may not be completely clear, but He is with you and will direct you. Check and confirm that your go forward has come from a place of authority. Even as I was preparing for this, I was urged to read a full chapter, Proverbs chapter 3. I was going to read it all out, frankly. I um, did. I read it myself, but refrain from reading it completely to you. Google it or take your physical copy of the Bible and please read Proverbs chapter 3. I will read 4 verses from it. Um, verses 5 to 8 says this: Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your path straight. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and turn away from evil. It will be healing to your body and refreshment to your bones. This new year, as you step into the unknown, think about this. What dream is hidden in your heart? One that is yet to take shape? What has been hindering you? Is it just that you know that it's not time? Or is it a fear? Is it a lack of clear direction? Even as a Christian, until some years back, I would seek direction from God only when I felt I didn't know the answer. My first option was not inquiring of the Lord. And yes, these have led to decisions which might not have been the best outcome. How do you seek from the Lord, you might ask? And how do you know it's from Him? You will know. It's not the same way for all. It can be a verse when you read the Bible, it could be a voice, it could be a dream, it could be through someone else that you trust, but confirmed by the word. Joseph, the husband of Mary, was a man of few words. However, his steps of obedience to do what he saw in a dream were the most radical. Dreams were the way that God talked to this man. My way is usually a two-way conversation when I am alone in the kitchen or in the bath. You may be asked to go forward when the world says don't. You might not be able to show the short-term outcome. I don't know if Joseph lived to see how his obedience impacted the world. I don't know if he lived enough to see Jesus grow until what age, and whether he realized that, yes, indeed, this boy is the Savior that we were waiting for. Abraham did not know the extent to which his obedience to step out was, so that countless people are his children through faith. Noah didn't know what it would look like. He looked like a fool when building this big structure for 120 years and leading animals to it. During the 40 days of rain and the 5 months that followed as the waters receded, there definitely might have been questions that arose in the family. What will happen next? So much of uncertainty. Even though he did not know, he could not see what the future looked like, what survival looked like and all. He still obeyed God in all things. That's what Genesis chapter 7 verse 5 says. Funny thing, a trivia as I was reading through this chapter or the chapters, when did man first start eating meat? After the flood is the answer. Read Genesis chapter 9 verses 3 to 6. Anyway, I have so many stories outside the Bible as well. Some personal ones that I'm going to share now. My grandfather and my husband's grandfather gave up all their earthly possessions um, to communities outside their family. They did not know what will become of their children. They did not get an opportunity to experience it all. we cannot see the full impact of our actions in our generations, or I should say, we may not see the full impact of our actions in our generation. But that's okay. You don't have to know everything. Be faithful in the everyday. Go forward. He who has called you is faithful to see you through. God bless you. Until next time.